Welcome to Soul Soil, a podcast where we slow down, get still, and tend to the deeper parts of who we are. I'm your host, Latoya Cooper, and this is a space for women who are ready to grow, not just on the surface, but from the inside out. Here we talk about holistic wellness, healing rhythms, and soul centered living. Because just like the earth, we thrive when our roots are nourished. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin. Hey friends, welcome back to Soul Soil. I'm your host Latoya, and I'm so glad that you're here. This podcast is all about nourishing your inner life and tending to the soil of your soul. Because we want to make sure that what grows in and through us is grounded, intentional, and aligned with who we truly are. Okay. Today's episode, we're talking about the inner garden, okay, and what we're growing within. And I want to start with a question for you to carry. What are you growing within? Now let's take a moment and imagine that your inner world, and I'm talking about your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, your beliefs, that all of those things are like a garden. So what does it look like in there? Are you cultivating joy? Is peace taking root? Are there new dreams that are just starting to sprout? Or maybe it's feeling a little overgrown, and maybe some old narratives or patterns have taken over like weeds. And we all have weeds, okay? Every single one of us. We all have those weeds. It's something, okay? But the beautiful thing is that we get to choose what we tend to, what we feed, what we prune, and we get to choose what we plant next. So let's talk about what's growing in our gardens and whether we've been paying attention to it or not. Because every belief that you hold and every thought that repeats in your mind, and we all have those things, right? Those stories that we tell ourselves, those things are seeds. And some seeds are planted by choice. We do it to ourselves. But others, they show up, in other ways. They can be things that are passed down from our family, things that are just kind of a part of our culture, or passed down through our culture. They can be old wounds but some seeds grow into strong, grounding truths, like, I am loved just as I am. I can try again tomorrow. God is not finished with me yet. But then there are the weeds, the ones, I'm just too much and I'll never be able to do this and I should be further along by now. Yeah. That last one tries to get me all the time, okay? But, if we're not careful, those weeds will start to take over and they'll crowd out the good things that we've been working so hard to grow. Weeds will totally take over. So how do we nourish our soul soil? Well, we do that through practices that feed us. Things like sometimes just stillness, prayer, honest self-reflection, setting boundaries, speaking our truth, resting, being in community. All these are things that help us to keep the soil soft and sacred. So let's take a few moments together to just check in with our inner gardens. And if you're driving or multitasking, no worries. You can come back to this part later. A time when you can sit with it quietly. All right. So I want you to take a deep breath in through the nose and out of the mouth. If you feel safe, go ahead and close your eyes. Now, I want you to picture your inner world, but picture it like it's a garden. What's blooming right now? What's been growing that you're proud of? What might need to be pulled up from the root? And I'll leave these in the show notes as well. Go ahead and open your eyes. And I want to give you some journal prompts for you to focus on this week. Also down in the show notes, all right? These journal notes are to help you to better see what you have growing internally, okay? And to change the narrative if you need to. Prompt number 1, okay, right now, The belief that I want to release is number two. The truth I want to plant and nurture is number three. One habit or thought that I'm ready to stop watering is, and finally, what's something new I want to grow in this season of life? Now, you don't have to figure it all out today, but awareness is the key. Awareness is where change begins. So this is just about allowing yourself the space to just be aware. Okay. So here's your invitation this week. I want you to choose one belief or habit to gently observe, gently, not judge, but to gently observe and tend to it. And maybe it's just replacing a thought like I can't do this with something softer like I'm learning as I go. Or maybe it's taking 5 minutes each day to simply sit and be still. Let your soul breathe. Whatever it is, just water it daily, not with pressure, but with grace. So I want to also share what I will be tending to this week with grace. Um, you know, I don't I don't really talk about it a whole lot, but I have been in a what feels like constant battle with depression for about um, 18 years now. That's when I was officially diagnosed. But looking back, and I was in my early 20s then, but looking back into my teenage years, I didn't know what it was then, but yeah, I was definitely dealing with depression even as a teenager. But, I've learned to be able to, of course, to have my tools so that if, you know, you can kind of sometimes feel when certain things, when those feelings are starting to come, when the feeling starts to come. And I have my tools, of course. But also, I try to avoid triggers. Sometimes you can try to avoid triggers that can trigger that feeling of depression. And something that I've been noticing the last few weeks is on early in the weeks, like Monday and Tuesday, have been really, really difficult for me. And um, I've had to definitely fight those feelings of depression, not spiraling into depression, but just those feelings of just maybe starting to feel depressed. And a pattern that I've noticed is that, well, on Sundays, every Sunday we have brunch. Have brunch here with my family. It's the only day that everyone is here for brunch. No one's working. We're together as a family. Um, and it's such a good time. And during the evening, as we shift into the evening, I've been noticing that at a certain point, I'll be taking in all of everything that's happening, but then I'll also be like, man, tomorrow's Monday, and it's not going to be like this because we're just back to the norm and everybody just doing their own thing and work and all this stuff. And I feel like that has, you know, those thoughts constantly coming in every Sunday evening have been one reason why my Mondays and Tuesdays have been really hard. Um, those do tend to be light work days for me. Um, so, sometimes if you don't have enough, you know, things can just come in, right, that you don't expect. So, what I'm going to tend to and water this week with grace is just allowing myself um, to be more intentional with how I end my weekends and how I go into my Mondays. Something that I was actually talking to my girls about not too long ago was how I wish that Mondays felt like Saturdays because, on Saturday evenings or afternoons, I cook also, but I just kind of cook, but it's also a time when no one's around and I just have the kitchen to myself, and I'm just in my zone. I usually have my iPad out watching a podcast, um, video interview, and and I always cook something different, something international, something that I haven't tried before, and that's my time. To me, that's just my thing. I like to cook, and I like that time on Saturday to myself, to just enjoy that. And so, um, so what I'm going to do on Monday, and by the way, today's Wednesday when I'm recording this. So on Monday, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan to cook a meal on Monday. Probably will start around 3 o'clock. And I'm going to be intentional with how I spend my day, with the things that I tell myself about Monday, so that I'm not constantly always feeling down and just low, and that darkness on those days. So that's what I'm going to be intentional about. It's a great weekend for me to start this because we're going to Charlotte. So I won't be cooking on Saturday or Sunday. So I'll be cooking on Monday. And so yeah, so that's really what I want to do this week. And listen, I'd love to hear what you're planting this season. So if something from today's episode resonated with you and you feel led to share, then feel free to come over to Instagram. You can DM me at Soul Soil Wellness, or tag your reflections using the hashtag Soul Soil Seeds. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Tending your soul soil isn't always fast or easy, but it's holy work, and you're not in it alone. Take a moment to subscribe, like, and share this episode with a friend who may need it. And remember to rate us on your favorite podcast app. It just helps us to grow and to be seen by others who could find this information useful. Until next time, remember that you are the gardener, you get to choose what you grow, and your inner life is worthy of care. See you next time.